from our Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum. I am Ahmed Ramadan. On our show today, American public support for Israel has plunged to its lowest level in 25 years, while sympathy for Palestinians reaches a record high. This story and more are coming up. Stay tuned. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the U.S. will revoke visas and deport foreign nationals for Hamas support, a term the administration has yet to define. The Trump administration is escalating its crackdown on anti-war voices. The initiative called Catch and Revoke will use AI to scan social media for content flagged as pro-Hamas or supportive of groups the administration designates as terrorist organizations. This follows President Donald Trump's recent executive order to combat anti-Semitism, which could lead to deportations. However, there is no clear definition of Hamas support, raising concerns that pro-Palestinian protests, human rights advocacy, and criticism of Israel are the target. It remains unclear how authorities will determine Hamas support. Rubio said the U.S. has zero tolerance for visitors backing terrorism, emphasizing national security risks. This isn't about national security, said one civil rights attorney. It's about punishing anyone who dares to challenge Israel's actions. The State Department has not explained how AI will determine violations, raising concerns about arbitrary censorship and mass deportations. The Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, has warned immigrants in the United States to avoid overseas travel this month. The warning follows reports that the Trump administration may introduce a new Muslim travel ban. The restrictions could affect travelers from Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Libya, Palestine, Pakistan, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. CAIR's Government Affairs Director, Robert McCaw, urged lawful permanent residents, foreign students, workers, and refugees from these countries not to leave the U.S. unless necessary. Reports suggest people from Afghanistan and Pakistan could face entry bans as early as next week. CAIR says it is uncertain which countries might be affected. The group is calling on the administration to reconsider any new travel bans. It argues that such measures unfairly target Muslim-majority nations. The Canadian province of Ontario will impose a 25% tariff on electricity exports to the United States starting Monday. The move will affect 1.5 million homes and businesses in New York, Minnesota, and Michigan. Ontario Premier Doug Ford announced the move in response to U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods. He warns if U.S. President Donald Trump expands those tariffs, Ontario will double the charge on its $489 million electricity exports. Ford called the situation a mess and insisted that tariffs will remain in place even if U.S. tariffs are temporarily paused. He demanded a complete end to all U.S. trade restrictions on Canadian imports. Ontario has formally notified the governors of the 3 affected states, who are all Democrats. Ford acknowledged their frustration but urged them to pressure Washington to act. He added Democrats and Republicans must push back against trade barriers that harm businesses and consumers on both sides of the border. Senator Bernie Sanders is demanding an investigation into the unofficial Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, and a subpoena for billionaire Elon Musk. Sanders accuses Musk of dismantling the federal government with President Donald Trump's support. His call comes after reports that 80,000 Veterans Affairs workers may lose their jobs under Trump's workforce cuts. Sanders says Musk has ordered agencies such as Health and Human Services, the Department of Labor, and the Department of Education to fire employees and hand over sensitive data. He also takes issue with Musk's private meeting with Republicans, questioning government transparency. Sanders says the public deserves to know what is happening and stressed the need for Musk to testify before Congress. The Israeli army has begun demolishing 17 Palestinian homes in the Nur Shams refugee camp in the occupied West Bank. Witnesses say military bulldozers moved into the camp near the city of Tul Karam on Thursday, destroying buildings under heavy security. The demolition comes just hours after Israeli authorities issued orders citing plans to build a road in the Al-Manshiyya neighborhood. Local officials warned that dozens of families will be left homeless. 11 homes were razed in an earlier wave of demolitions in the same camp. In the city of Jenin's refugee camp, Israeli forces also tore down 4 more houses and reportedly set fire to another 2. Palestinian authorities say this is part of a broader Israeli plan to annex the occupied West Bank. The Israeli military's attacks in the northern West Bank has been ongoing since January, killing at least 65 people and displacing thousands. Since Israel began its genocide in Gaza in October of 2023, more than 930 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli attacks in the occupied West Bank. Tensions remain high as Israel continues its operations despite international calls, including from the International Court of Justice, declaring its occupation illegal. American public support for Israel has plunged to its lowest level in 25 years, while sympathy for Palestinians reaches a record high. A new Gallup poll reveals deep partisan divides. So what's driving this shift? We break down the numbers and the impact coming up next.
Assalamu alaikum. This is the largest refugee camp in the world. 1 million people are sitting here, doing nothing essentially, cannot study, cannot have a living, and world has to give them, feed them bit by bit, little bit of food. I find children, all skinny children around me, and they are wondering what's our future. Since I came from America, they're asking me this question, what's the future for us? Please, join Burma Task Force. It's a coalition of 38 organizations. Support Burma Task Force, join Justice for All. Let's change the future for 1 million people sitting here in the world's largest refugee camp for 7 years. Join now.
Welcome back. American support for Israel has fallen to 46%, the lowest in 25 years, according to a Gallup poll. This marks a 5-point drop from last year. Sympathy for Palestinians has risen to 33%, the highest ever recorded. The shift follows Israel's genocide in Gaza, which has killed more than 60,000 people, mostly women and children. The survey was conducted from February 3rd to 16th and highlighted deep partisan divides. While 75% of Republicans support Israel, only 21% of Democrats do. Meanwhile, 59% of Democrats sympathize with Palestinians, nearly 3 times the figure that Republicans do. The poll also found that 55% of Americans support a 2-state solution, with strong backing from 76% of Democrats and 53% of independents. In contrast, only 41% of Republicans favor it. A secret mass grave and detention center have been discovered at a paramilitary Rapid Support Forces or RSF base north of Sudan's capital, Khartoum. More than 500 people are suspected to have been tortured or starved to death before being buried in at least 550 unmarked graves. Survivors rescued from the site said brutal torture, starvation, and deaths took place inside the facility. Doctors also confirmed severe malnutrition and signs of torture. Human Rights Watch has called the site one of the largest atrocity crime scenes in Sudan's conflict and is urging a UN investigation. The Sudanese military recently retook the base from the RSF and found cells with bloodstains, punishment chambers, and monocles. Satellite images also confirm the graves only appeared after the paramilitary group occupied the site, following the start of the civil war in April 2023. Khartoum is Sudan's largest city and a key political and economic hub. It has been at the center of the country's civil war between the RSF and the Sudanese armed forces. The conflict has killed tens of thousands of people and displaced more than 14 million while plunging Sudan into the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Thousands of young Indians living in the U.S. are facing an immigration crisis once they turn 21. That is when all youth living with their parents under the H-1B visa in the country legally lose dependent status. The H-1B visa has long been popular among Indian professionals, especially in the IT sector. This is due to the high demand for skilled workers in the US and the opportunity to earn significantly higher salaries. As of March 2023, nearly 134,000 Indian children were at risk of aging out before their families secured green cards. This is forcing them to find alternative visa options or leave the United States. Previously, they had 2 years to transition to a more permanent immigration status. However, policy changes have now placed their stay in doubt. After Latin Americans, Indians are the second largest group crossing into the U.S. from Mexico. Indian media outlet NDTV reports that many affected individuals are now exploring immigration options in Canada or the UK, which have more flexible policies. The backlog in the United States green card system disproportionately affects Indian immigrants. Some face waits of up to 100 years for permanent residency. Meanwhile, the USCIS has opened H-1B visa registration for fiscal year 2026 from March 7 to 24 with a $250 fee. The cap remains at 65,000 visas annually, plus 20,000 for U.S. master's degree holders. On Friday, the Canadian government announced a new round of sanctions against Burma. This is for undermining the peace, security, and stability of the country and contributing to gross human rights violations. This is for undermining the peace, security, and stability of the country and contributing to gross human rights violations. Those sanctioned include 13 senior government officials and 3 entities. The situation in the Southeast Asian nation has deteriorated since February 2021. That was when Burma's military overthrew the democratically elected government and arrested key political and government leaders. In a statement, Canada's foreign ministry urged all countries to impose similar measures. It also called on the international community to suspend all operational and financial support to the country's military regime and to cease the transfer of arms, material, dual-use equipment, and technical assistance to the regime and its agents. That's all from our Toronto studios. Thank you for watching Muslim News. We are a community channel dedicated to bringing you stories you can trust. Please like, share, and subscribe to our content. You can also comment to let us know what you think of our coverage. You can donate now by visiting muslimnetwork.tv/donate. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV. Salam.